Deep in the Colorado mountains lies a prison unlike any other. Here, the world's most dangerous criminals, terrorist attackers, transnational spies, bombers, and others are confined in absolute silence, isolated beyond mere bars and walls. Within its confines, inmates are deprived of light, touch, sound, and even the passage of time. Many lose their sanity long before their sentences conclude. Yet, sentences longer than a lifetime are not the most terrible punishment. The true horror lies in complete isolation, a fate worse than death. After more than 30 years, not a single prisoner has successfully escaped this world's most secure prison. What makes it truly inescapable? The answer will redefine your understanding of confinement. ADX Florence isn't just built to keep people in. It's designed to erase the very idea of escape. The prison sits in the middle of Colorado's rocky landscape, far from any major city. From the outside, it looks like a huge concrete block surrounded by dirt, fences, and silence. But inside, it's one of the most advanced and tightly controlled structures ever built in the American prison system. Every corner, every hallway, every door is part of a plan to trap. Not just bodies, but thoughts. The walls of ADX are made of reinforced concrete, thick, smooth, and impossible to break. Each cell is a box of steel and cement, sealed tight like a vault. Even the ceilings and floors are part of the same hard structure. There are no loose tiles, no hollow walls, nothing that can be chipped away. Every detail is there to make sure no one can dig, break, or melt their way out. Each cell has a window that's only 4 inches wide and 4 feet tall. It's positioned high on the wall, at an angle, so the prisoner inside can only see the sky. They can't see other inmates, guards, fences, or even the ground. This makes it nearly impossible to know where they are inside the building. Some prisoners have described it like being buried alive with a view of the clouds. The layout of ADX is built like a maze. Instead of getting lost, it's designed to make sure you're always trapped. There are around 1,400 remote-controlled steel doors in the prison. These doors can be locked or opened from a central control room with the push of a button. If a guard suspects something is wrong, they can seal off the entire prison in seconds. No one goes in or out without being tracked. Motion detectors are hidden in walls and ceilings. Pressure pads cover the ground in critical areas. Every hallway is under camera surveillance. The main control room watches everything at all times. If one prisoner even twitches wrong, someone sees it. It's like being trapped inside a machine that never blinks. Each housing unit in the prison is separated by levels of security. For example, Range 13 is the highest security wing. It has only 4 cells, each built for total isolation. No one in Range 13 sees anyone else. No voices, no contact, only silence. Even the smallest details are designed to prevent accidents, violence, or escape. Such as the TV is designed so it can't be turned into a weapon. The mirrors are polished metal bolted into the wall. The toilets shut off automatically if they're blocked. Showers run on timers to stop flooding. Beds, desks, and stools are molded directly from concrete. If a prisoner needs to move from one part of the facility to another, the process is extreme. Guards strap on handcuffs, leg irons, and a belly chain before escorting them. The prisoner is walking alone through locked hallways. Sometimes it takes 5 officers just to move one person a few feet. Even meals are part of the system. Most food is delivered straight to each cell through a narrow slot in the door. Inmates eat alone, and there's no cafeteria for social contact. The prison is quiet on purpose. The silence is part of the punishment. All of this may sound like overkill, but ADX was built after several brutal attacks and escapes from other federal prisons. In 1983, 2 corrections officers were murdered on the same day in a different facility. After that, prison officials realized they needed a place with zero room for error. When the Bureau of Prisons started planning ADX Florence, they made a clear goal: design a facility where no escape would ever be possible. And they achieved it. Since it opened in 1995, no one has broken out. Not one person has even come close. Some experts call ADX Florence clean torture. It doesn't use whips or beatings. Instead, it uses silence, space, and time to crush a person's mind slowly. The walls don't move, but they close in over months and years. Inside this fortress, freedom is not just taken. There are no riots, no crowds, no chaos, just a quiet machine that runs without mercy. For the outside world, this design might feel safe, but for those trapped inside, it's something else entirely. A cage so perfect it doesn't even feel like a place for humans anymore. But what's life really like when you're locked in a box for 23 hours a day? Let's take a look inside a day at ADX Florence. Life inside ADX Florence is not just strict. It is designed to erase every part of normal human living. Inmates here wake up in complete silence. There is no sound of footsteps, no voice calling out names, and no noise from a cellmate because everyone lives alone. The only sounds they hear day after day are the quiet hum of air vents and the occasional metal clank of a door slot opening. Some prisoners say it is not the noise that drives them mad, but the total lack of it. Each day starts and ends in the same room, a space roughly 7 feet wide and 12 feet long, made entirely of concrete. The bed is a slab built into the wall, while the desk and stool are also concrete. Even the toilet and sink are part of the same unyielding structure. The lights are controlled from outside, and the shower operates on a timer that shuts it off automatically. Prisoners are allowed 3 showers per week, each one closely monitored. Most meals are delivered through a slot in the steel door, with no choice in the menu. The food meets basic nutritional standards but is deliberately plain, just enough to sustain them. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner become indistinguishable after months of repetition. Inmates eat alone, with no conversation, no music, and no movement to break the monotony. There is no cafeteria, no common space, and no group activities. Every prisoner lives as an isolated island. Even exercise is solitary. For 1 hour each day, inmates are taken to a small outdoor area resembling an empty swimming pool with tall walls and no roof. In this concrete pit, they can walk a few steps or stretch, but they cannot speak to anyone. Some days, the exercise yard feels even colder than the cell itself. Inside their cells, prisoners may have a black and white television broadcasting educational and religious content. A few have access to additional channels, but all programming is pre-approved and monitored. They can request books and magazines from the prison library, but the process is slow and heavily scrutinized. Radios are permitted, but only for limited music or pre-recorded news, never live broadcasts. Communication with the outside world is rare and tightly controlled. Phone calls are restricted to a few times per month, with every conversation recorded. Letters are inspected word by word. Family visits, if permitted, take place behind glass, with no physical contact. Some inmates go years without hearing a loved one's voice. For others, visits cease entirely. Movement within the prison offers no reprieve. Inmates are shackled in handcuffs, leg irons, and belly chains simply to walk from one area to another. It does not matter if they have been compliant for months. Every transfer is treated as a potential threat. For prisoners under Special Administrative Measures, SAMs, the rules are even tighter. These inmates, often linked to terrorism, cannot speak to journalists or communicate privately with their lawyers. Prisoners are not just locked away from society, They are severed from time, sound, and human connection. Days blur into nights, weeks into years. Some compare the experience to being buried alive with a clock that never stops ticking. Mental breakdowns are common. A person can only stare at the same walls for so long before their mind begins to fracture. Some talk to themselves, others withdraw into total silence. The absence of noise does not bring peace, it amplifies the pressure. Even small privileges like extra recreation time or a better book selection must be earned through months of flawless behavior. And even then, improvement is never guaranteed. Many inmates have no idea if or when their conditions might change. ADX Florence was not built merely to hold people. It was engineered to dismantle the very concept of freedom, one day at a time. But who exactly are the people living this nightmare? In the next part, we meet the inmates who turned ADX into a name the world will never forget. ADX Florence isn't just a prison. It's where America's most infamous criminals, the ones who shocked the nation, are locked away. One of the most well-known prisoners is Ted Kaczynski, also known as the Unabomber. He was once a math genius and a Harvard graduate. But something inside him changed. Between 1978 and 1995, he sent homemade bombs to universities, airlines, and research labs across the country. He wanted to destroy what he saw as a corrupt, technology-driven society. His attacks killed 3 people and injured over 20 others. For years, he avoided capture by living off the grid in a remote cabin. But in the end, it was his own brother who turned him in after recognizing his writing in a published manifesto. Kaczynski now spends his time in ADX reading, writing, and living in almost total silence. Another infamous inmate is Ramzi Youssef, the man behind the first World Trade Center bombing in 1993. He planted a massive truck bomb under the North Tower, hoping to bring it down and kill thousands. The blast killed 6 people and injured over 1,000 more. His plan failed, but it was a terrifying preview of the 9/11 attacks that came years later. Youssef didn't stop there. He also plotted to blow up multiple planes at once and even planned an assassination attempt on the Pope. After years on the run, he was finally captured in Pakistan. He now serves life without parole in a high-security wing of ADX, locked away from the world he once tried to destroy. Zacarias Moussaoui is another name forever tied to the tragedy of September 11th. He was the only person ever convicted in a U.S. court for being involved in the attacks. Though he wasn't on any of the hijacked planes, prosecutors believed he was supposed to be the 20th hijacker. His behavior in court shocked everyone. He shouted at the judge, refused legal help, and claimed he wanted to see America suffer. The jury spared him the death penalty, but he was sentenced to life in prison. Today, Moussaoui is held under special restrictions. He has little to no contact with the outside world. Then there's Eric Rudolph, known for the bombing at the 1996 Atlanta Olympics. He planted a backpack filled with explosives in a crowded park. The blast killed 2 people and wounded over 100. After that, he carried out more attacks targeting abortion clinics and a gay nightclub. He believed he was on a mission from God. Rudolph disappeared into the wilderness for 5 years, hiding in the Appalachian Mountains. Eventually, he was caught while digging through a dumpster behind a grocery store. Now, like others at ADX, he lives in isolation, far from the chaos he once caused. One of the most chilling cases is Robert Hansen, a former FBI agent who secretly worked as a spy for the Soviet Union and Russia. Over 22 years, he gave away thousands of classified documents, exposed American agents overseas, and damaged national security in ways experts still don't fully understand. He didn't do it for ideology. He did it for money and out of resentment toward his employer. When he was finally caught, even seasoned investigators were shocked by how much harm he had caused. Hansen now lives under the tightest restrictions, never allowed to speak freely or interact with others. Each of these men represents a different kind of threat: terrorist, traitor, bomber, killer. But they all ended up in the same place, behind the steel and concrete of ADX Florence. The prison doesn't just hold their bodies, it holds their legacies, frozen in time, as reminders of what they did and what the system does in response. For the public, knowing that these figures are locked away brings a sense of safety. But for those who study criminal behavior, it raises difficult questions. What happens to people when you remove all contact, all comfort, and all hope? Can justice exist without the chance for change? And what does it say about us when we create a place so harsh that it silences even the loudest voices? ADX Florence holds more than just famous names. It holds the weight of their crimes and the heavy silence that follows. But locking people up is one thing. Keeping them sane is another. In the next part, we look at the mental cost of extreme isolation and why ADX has become a symbol of both security and controversy. ADX Florence may be the most secure prison in America, but its real power isn't in locks or fences. For many inmates, the worst punishment is not the cell, it's the isolation. Being alone for 23 hours a day with no real human contact can slowly wear down even the strongest minds. Over time, that silence becomes louder than any scream. Studies have shown that long-term solitary confinement can cause depression, anxiety, and hallucinations. One of the most extreme cases was Thomas Silverstein, who spent over 35 years in isolation. He was locked in a small cell with almost no interaction. Over the years, he developed signs of mental decline and was described by some as a man living in slow motion. His case became a symbol of what can happen when punishment turns into psychological destruction. In 2012, a group of 11 inmates filed a lawsuit against the Bureau of Prisons. The case, known as Cunningham versus BOP, accused the prison of ignoring serious mental illness and violating basic human rights. Several prisoners had already taken their own lives. Others, like Jack Powers, were pushed into madness after years of isolation. Powers even bit off one of his fingers during a breakdown. He had no history of mental illness before entering ADX. The lawsuit forced the prison system to respond. ADX introduced a program called the Step-Down Program, designed to slowly move inmates out of solitary confinement. It included therapy sessions, educational materials, and more recreation time. The idea was to reward good behavior and reduce mental harm, but the program came with problems. However, not everyone is allowed to join. Inmates under special restrictions, such as terrorism suspects, are often excluded. Others who suffer from mental illness may struggle to meet the strict rules for progress. Critics say the system is too rigid and doesn't give second chances. Mental health care inside ADX has improved, but it still faces major challenges. Some prisoners have access to telepsychiatry, which involves video calls with doctors, but these sessions are conducted while they remain handcuffed and surrounded by guards. Therapy is limited. Medication is often slow to arrive. And for those in the most secure wings, there is little hope of ever leaving isolation. The public may see ADX as a necessary tool to keep society safe, but inside there is a different story, one where silence becomes a weapon and survival becomes a question of mental strength. In the next part, we'll step back and ask a harder question. Is ADX Florence really the answer, or is it part of a much deeper problem? ADX Florence was built to protect society, but some experts argue it does more harm than good. Supporters of the prison say it works. Since opening in 1995, there hasn't been a single escape. It holds the worst of the worst men who planned bombings, betrayed governments, and ended lives without remorse. With its high-tech systems and complete isolation, ADX prevents violence, both inside and outside its walls. For many Americans, knowing these people are locked away brings comfort. But others ask a harder question. At what cost? Building ADX cost over $60 million. It costs millions more every year. But the real price might be human dignity. Organizations like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have criticized ADX for violating basic rights. They call it a place where punishment becomes psychological torture, especially for inmates held in long-term solitary confinement. The prison doesn't offer a real path to change. For most inmates, there is no end goal, no fresh start, no contact with loved ones. Some will never again hear a human voice that isn't filtered through glass or metal. That kind of isolation, stretched over years or decades, breaks something inside a person, and once it's broken, it rarely heals. Those labeled as too dangerous may stay trapped in the same four walls forever, no matter how they behave. And for prisoners with mental illness, the rules can feel impossible. There's no doubt that society needs to be protected from certain individuals. But does that mean creating a prison that strips away every sign of humanity? Does safety have to come at the price of compassion? ADX Florence stands as both a symbol of control and a question mark in the American justice system. It raises one final question. If we lock people away so tightly that they lose their minds, are we still doing justice or crossing a line we can't take back? The controversy over ADX Florence isn't just about security. It's a mirror reflecting what we're willing to accept in the name of justice. Conclusion: ADX Florence, a fortress built on fear. ADX Florence was built to control the uncontrollable. It was made for the kind of people the world fears: bombers, traitors, and killers who show no mercy. With its steel doors, silent cells, and high-tech security, the prison promises total safety. But in chasing that goal, it may have created something even more dangerous. What makes ADX so powerful isn't just its walls. It's the silence, the isolation, and the slow erosion of the human mind. This prison doesn't just punish people, it breaks them. For some inmates, the punishment never ends. There is no noise, no comfort, and no hope. Just a routine so strict and so cold that it can make anyone lose their sense of self. For many, this seems fair. After all, these are people who caused real pain. But justice is not about revenge. It's about balance. And when punishment becomes something closer to psychological destruction, that balance is lost. ADX Florence is a product of modern fear and advanced design. But it also raises one final question. Are we safer because of it, or are we slowly giving up part of our humanity? In the end, every society must choose what kind of justice it believes in. A justice that isolates and silences, or one that holds people accountable while still protecting their dignity. So what do you think? Should prisons like ADX Florence continue to exist? Or is it time to rethink how far justice should go?